Looks like we've got at least 4.
Oh, I can, shall I read the statement?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just seeing. Oh, we have Tama coming in. So, okay. Let me just announce this is the beginning of Monday, November 13th, regularly scheduled Conservation Commission meeting in 2023. It is now 6:33 p.m. and we are obligated to begin with the reading of the preamble related to this being a remote meeting. So Dan, you're on.
Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing/meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website, www.nortonmediacenter.org, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. So participating tonight, we have our office staff, John Thomas, our director, and Megan Harrup, our assistant. I am Julian Kadish, chair. We also have Lisa, the vice chair, Dan Pearson, Paxton Halschel, and Tom Vest. We may get a couple of other members participating later, which I will enter into the record if that happens. Yeah. So our first meeting tonight, new public hearing, file number 250-1140, 237 East Main Street. And this involves a parcel adjacent the Condyne project on Leonard Street. A little bit of history here because that parcel was actually to be developed as 2 separate retail commercial buildings. That plan was changed, and because it was set up as 2 orders of conditions, it is much simpler to close those out and combine it as one project, which is what will be presented in this hearing as I understand it. So do we have a representative of the applicant? And if you can pick it up from here.
Yes, Julian, my name is Don O'Neill from Condyne, and I have Brandon Carr, a civil engineer, along with us to present tonight. John Thomas and board members, thanks for having us tonight. And we're here to discuss 237 East Main Street. And Julian, you're right, we had it under 2 similar lots, and it was designed for retail, and then COVID set in, and the interest as far as retail on the lot was few and far between. And I think it's been a good 3 years since we were original plan for those lots. It's a 32,000 square foot, 420 square feet warehouse building. It will be similar to the existing buildings that you see on 4 and 5. We have parking on the.
Pardon just 1 second. If
Yeah.
you have sharing capability, maybe we can bring up a plan for those not completely familiar with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you get going, I just want to make a note that member Lisa Carrozza is going to recuse herself from this project because she has or her husband has ties to this project, so she's going to recuse herself.
I
Well,
do not want to interrupt the flow, but yes.
But I've been thinking about this. She certainly would recuse herself from voting on decisions, but as a resident of town, I think she is certainly able to ask questions. It's been identified that there is a connection through a relative of having done work, but I don't see that I mean, what is recusing in this context amount to?
If we were meeting in person, what she would do is she would step down from the podium per se, or the board, and she would go into the audience. So in essence, with the kind of procedures that are made through virtual, it's best for her to turn off her screen and technically be a member of the audience under that kind of condition.
Okay, but yeah, I personally don't think that's necessary. We've identified what some people could consider an appearance of conflict, but this is not the equivalent of a gag order during a proceeding. So I'm just a little more relaxed about it in that regard. But we've identified the possibility of conflict. So enough said. We will move on.
Sure, that's okay. What Brandon has brought up is the site that we're talking about that's in blue, which is on the front of East Main Street and the side of Leonard Street, and it's the first lot. In our original build, we discussed about retail, and the success there hasn't been, which is unfortunate, but the warehouse interest is a strong interest at that site. If we can turn to the next page, Brandon, showing the facility itself. And this is the property that we're talking about out front. And as I was alluding to, the parking is in the front, which is on the Leonard Street side, with the entrance coming in to the shared access. All utilities are in place. The building's 32,420 square feet. Similar looks to the other facilities, with the loading docks for trucks in the back. If you want to touch base, Brandon, and come in on the civil design and engineering with landscape and the basins, infiltration, traffic flow, we can go from there.
Good evening, everyone. Brandon Carr from Dupree Engineering. Yeah, so as Don said, we've got the industrial building here and the warehouse building here in the center of the lot. It's kind of a long, skinny lot. So it's kind of a long, skinny building to make it fit in there. We've got the truck loading in the back here, and then the parking up front. We meet all applicable, zoning setbacks, site coverages, amount of parking, things like that. We are before planning tomorrow night for a site plan review. As Don mentioned, all the utilities are stubbed basically in this drive aisle. This existing drive aisle is built. It serves building 4 here, and we'll be stubbing off of that. So water, sewer, gas, and electric are all stubbed in this front portion of the site here. I should point out why we're before conservation. So if I flip back to the aerial, this site is located at the front here, right at the corner of East Main and Leonard Street, and the Canoe River is south of our property, and then there's some wetlands associated with the Canoe River. So we're not working. We don't have any wetlands on our site, I should say, but a portion of would be the 100-foot setback from the wetland, and this is the 200-foot riverfront do come onto our site. So all our development, all our paved surfaces, our stormwater ponds, our buildings are outside the riverfront. The actually only section of work that we're doing in the riverfront is this small area here, which is actually disturbed today, and we'll just be removing, there's like a little bit of a stockpile that extended into the riverfront. But we would be reseeding that, and kind of letting that grow back in naturally. The previous application did have work in that riverfront. So the only work here is to kind of restore that riverfront area. From a stormwater standpoint, we have 3 treatment BMPs. So for the working from front to the back of the site, we have a combination sand filter on the right here, infiltration basin that treats the front parking lot. Then we have an underground infiltration system here that serves the roof. And the overflow from that front sand filter, you can see it's connected into there. So that infiltrates up to the 100-year storm for the front parking lot and the roof. Those 2 practices combined. And then in the back, we have a similar, we basically have a paved waterway to a sediment forebay to a sand filter, and also another infiltration pond. And that handles the back parking and loading area, as well as there's this kind of a swale that runs along the western side of the building in between our building and East Main Street. So that captures some runoff from that side yard area, and also some that comes down the embankment from 123 from East Main Street. Again, that was that infiltrates. I don't believe that infiltrates up to the 100-year storm, but it overtops, I think, at the past the 25-year storm. But we meet all on a site basis and watershed basis. We meet all water quality, infiltration, and peak attenuation requirements. Everything's designed per the town standards and per the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook. We did have a peer review done by, I think it was Amory. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now. Was it Amory, John?
It was Pat Brennan. He's
Oh.
actually I guess not working with them. He has his own
Okay.
business now. So.
I recognize the name, and I think he used to. Yeah, so Pat Brennan did the review. We got 4 or 5 comments. We responded to them, and then we got an all clear from him on that. If there's any questions on the peer review, I can go through it. On any of the individual items. I think the last piece I'll just walk through is the landscape plan, which we submitted. So we are providing street trees along Leonard Street, some plantings around a proposed sign on the corner here, and then street trees down the side here to buffer us from East Main Street. Plantings, required grass and different plantings in the 2 stormwater areas, and then some street trees, some trees around the parking lot, and then the remainder is lumen seed and some screening for the transformer up front. But for the most part, a very kind of typical mix, similar, a lot of the same species that we've provided in the back for phase 2 of Blue Star. I guess the last thing, it's not really as much a conservation item, but in case anybody has questions, there is an existing right turn lane off of East Main Street here that was gonna basically come in right between the 2 retail lots. So one of the retail lots stood here, one of it stood down here. So that kind of served as the main entrance to that retail off of East Main. That's going to be removed as part of this. It just doesn't work for this program anymore. So we would work with MassDOT to remove that curb cut. So I think that's kind of a high level overview of the site design. We did a site walk with a few members, John, on Friday. And like I said, we received an all clear on the peer review, but if you have any questions on particularly the site design, anything we're proposing or the peer review, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. And so from what you summarized, it appears that there is less impact on the riverfront area and no impact on the wetland 100-foot buffer, as it was before. But you said there would have been a little riverfront area impact. That's now being reduced to none. And then the stormwater has met peer reviewer requirements. So is that a fair summary, John?
That is a fair summary.
So from conservation point of view, there is no problem with regard to this project compared, as there was no problem with the other two separate projects before.
This project is overall a better, or more, I guess, it's a better improvement to the existing or the proposed use of the land than what was previously proposed for conservation purposes.
All right, so any questions from members of the commission? And any questions from any member of the audience? You can either go to the reaction button and press the hand raise button, or just speak up and I will be able to recognize you. And if there are no questions, because you're going before planning tomorrow night, it may be best to leave this open, even though all of the information for conservation has been addressed. But we don't know if planning is going to be in total agreement. Is that acceptable, Don?
From our side, I'm not sure, do we need to keep it open? We can only, get by planning board's approval anyway. So is there a reason why we need to keep that open besides our meeting with planning board?
Well, usually if planning hasn't finalized it, we would keep it open. It wouldn't change anything because at our next meeting, we would have an order of conditions and we would just close it and deliberate over the order of conditions. So I don't know, John, do you have a comment on that?
I mean, they can most certainly close it and then have to come back with a revision to the plan. It's up to them. I mean, if they're confident that, for instance, they don't foresee any sort of changes to the design, then, they can choose to request it to be closed this evening. It's really up to them on how they want to proceed with this.
Yeah, it may be, I mean, even though you say that it's highly likely that this will just be approved and that will be that, in the unlikely event of even a, minor change that might change the outline a little bit, it would be quicker if we would just be able to adjust the plan and then close and proceed. So
John,
we'll do it either way.
Chairman, just to be clear, you wouldn't, and for Don, my purpose, even if you close the hearing tonight, you would still have to come back to vote on the prepared order conditions at the next hearing anyways, right? So Don, really the only thing is that we'd be leaving the public comment window open. So, I mean, I think we have to come back to their next meeting anyway, so it probably is easiest if we just leave the comment open in case we do have to make any adjustments. We can just review them quick and proceed, but since we
No,
do
I'm
have-
all right with that. If that's the direction, Brandon, I
Yeah.
concur, and we'll go in that direction.
Okay.
All right, if there's no further discussion, our next meeting is the 27th of November, and we would continue it until that time. So unless there's further discussion, we can consider a motion to continue this until the 27th of November.
I'll make a motion to continue DEP file number 250-1140 until November 27th.
A motion by Thomas, seconded by
Second.
seconded by Dan. So roll call vote, beginning with Paxton and Dan.
Yep.
Aye.
And Tama,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye and let the record
Abstain.
show that Lisa is abstaining. All right, thank you, guys.
Uh,
All right.
quick question, John, the closeout for the original two, the COCs for the, original two lots is late in the agenda. You don't need us to stick around for that, or do you?
No, you should be all set. You guys are going with and no work was done. The only thing was the stockpiling and everything like that. So I think we should be fine.
Kind of programmatic on this one in
Yeah.
a way. So, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is file number 250-1128. It is a request for an amended order of conditions, 36 Dean Street, modification of the site plan. Do we have a representative of that applicant? As I understand it, it's a fairly minor adjustment having to do with movement of the concrete pad that where some of the work will be done. Do we have a plan for that?
We do. I'll pull it up real quick. Give me 1 second. Can anyone see the plan?
We
Yes.
can't. So this is the prior position?
So this is what they're actually proposing now. Sorry. Waiting for it.
And-
There we go.
And it's what, 20 or 30 feet away from the original spot?
Yeah, so they actually placed the pad. They actually swapped the position of where the leaching field was going to go with where the pad was. And then they put the pad further to the west. I think that's west. The west of where it was originally. So they were basically, there was a comment from DEP asking that, for instance, it looked like there was a better alternative for this. And that was the comment they had. So they went back to the drawing board, made some refinements and adjustments, and they were just looking to basically seek approval through the amendment process to make sure, and DEP has already stated that they're comfortable with the plan as it's being currently proposed. It's just the process that they need to go through administratively, seeking the amendment and making sure that it becomes finalized.
So this does not sound problematic or controversial.
It's not. It's actually technically an improvement of what they initially had, because they're lessening the amount of impacts within a resource area, which is the riverfront area, and they're also taking the bulk majority of the work outside the buffer.
All right, any questions from members of the commission? Or we'll even say members of the public? So without any questions, I think we can consider closing the public hearing and later deliberating on the proposed amended change.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing for file 250-1128.
Second.
Motion by Lisa to close the hearing, seconded by Dan. Roll call vote, starting with Dan and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. we will deliberate later for the yay or nay for the proposed amendment.
Quick question, Ron is not here tonight?
It appears
Ron or-
Ron isn't on, and
Okay.
Mark
Okay.
Fernandez is also not.
Well, Mark as well, yeah.
Our next item is file number 250-1142, notice of intent, 0 West Main Street. This is a new project near the entrance of Oak Street onto 123, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one house away from St. Mary's Church, the parking lot.
All right. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
Michael Larkin, the owner, and I believe the Sheng Wang, the engineer here, is here as well.
Yeah, Sheng Wang from Creative Land and Water Engineering.
All right. And maybe we can have one of you share your screen to bring up the plan.
Okay, I will share the screen. I'll see it.
It's coming. It looks like it's here. Yes.
All right. Okay, so Mike, you want to start quickly or you want me to?
You can go ahead, Sheng.
All right. Okay. Good evening again. My name is Sheng Wang from Creative Land and Water Engineering. So this is a parcel next to the church, actually originally owned by the church, is currently wooded, and the wetland resource was delineated and approved December 2021, as the green lines showed in the central of this land area, like a cove, and it's a BBW drain toward the southwest. So the proposed project is 2 residential building complex. Building A is roughly 2,700 square feet. Building B is 440, 100 square feet. Building B. Per the planning board recommendation, so we subdivided. It was originally 3 parcels under the existing condition and combined to be divided into 2 parcels. Lot 1 consists of 61,000 square feet, more or less, and lot 2 is 87,000 square feet, which meet all the zoning requirement. So the building A is it's located more toward the front and the west, northwest part of the lot 1, and with the entrance as marked as erosion control, mud trap, and with the parking lot, and then a septic system. So except the front parking, most of the land is within 100 feet buffer zone, and the minimum setback to the disturbance is to the parking is 30.85 square feet and 39.25 to building A. And for building B, so it's more from the property line and from the 100. Let me see on the.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I only have the lot setback, so that's it, because we at the time we saw the closest setback. But let me just quickly give you a number. It looks like close to 100, probably 95 and 90 some distance. But let me get the closest one. It's 92 feet setback from wetland lines. So we observed that the 25-foot no disturb zone, but some places getting pretty close, probably 28 in this area, 27, 28 square feet, 2768, that's closest. So, and then the stormwater management, so the total impervious area is 0.868 acres. So it's a little bit under 1 acre for the disturbance. So the stormwater management achieved by 3 infiltration and infiltration trench and basins. So the front building was going to dry well, like trench type of dry well, or the roof is going. And then the front parking going to another trench with the stormwater oil grid separator, treated the water to 85 TS removal rate. So it's very, I can explain a little bit why that be achieved. So it's consisting of 2 structures. So the first brush will be treated going to the oil grid separator. Any overflow will be proportionally, but major will consider cleaner water to be going to the basin, so they will not resuspend the sediment. For the roof runoff, in addition, just that usually will go directly into the trench, we provided a deep sump. We call it a grid trap because it's not really catch basin. So some of the roofs, we still find there's some like a pollen and they wash off the shingles. So it's the best interest was not in the DEP requirement, but volunteer, we added grid trap. So for the roof treatment before they go into the dry well, even though they are considered as a clean water. So just and then the side parking is go through drain toward a long swale, a transition for grass swale treatment, and then they will go into a catch basin connected to the third infiltration basin. We consider the infiltration basin was designed with subsurface trencher in the bottom. So the reason is to help reduce the impoundment surface water and also to enhance the dewatering and the infiltration function in the bottom on the far side, because this basin is a long, over 100 feet. So when the water travel there, really getting into the subsurface is really going to be much more cleaner. So all the 3 trenches or basins, it's contain water up to 100-year storm. So there's no overflow because the reason is the whole site has a hydrologic group A soils is extremely excessive permeable. As so John has witnessed testing, we have done 7 stormwater testing in all the 3 areas plus the building, which shows the water table is very stable because the soil is just, you cannot sustain it. It's how good it is with the in situ testing. Half of the rate is probably already 8 times faster than the best rate DEP would allow under the lowest number. So it's just, you cannot keep it up. So we have done a similar site for the Burners and Phils. That site, I don't know whether they complete construction, but that basin was, after working how many years, was still working bone dry. So that's for the stormwater. We did receive a comments from Pat, from the peer reviewer, and it sort of, there's 2 major issues in the comments. The rest of it is minor. We will definitely get it completed easy. So one is the setback. So sort of, infiltration basins are required setback 50 feet to the wetlands or infiltration trenches. However, in the stormwater management handbook, they never detailed how to measure it. So, and in the past few years, I know different like Beta and including Pat, they did contact DEP. So in 2020, I was working on a project in Franklin. So that's at the time, DEP's circuit rider from Boston said, oh yeah, you need to measure 100 feet, 50 feet from the old side of the slope, equivalent to the bottom of the basin, to the wetlands. But I can give you like in a quick, simple illustration, like in our side, if you have a flat terrace area, you dig in the basin. If you, from the bottom, if you extend it out to the old slope, you are going to just close to the wetland. There's no way you will be 50 feet away. So I just, last week, basically, I contacted DEP, so which is there probably the chief stormwater management tech staff, Tom McGuire. So these are probably know him. And so he clarified through a lawsuit case. It's probably just as I described. People say it's crazy. Can't you, for infiltration trench, you measure from the inside, but why the infiltration basin you have to measure from the outside? So right now, DEP basically ruled that the setback is measured from inside bottom of the slope to the wetland. So which kind of makes sense because the water retrieved after they water, they probably funnels all the way to the bottom. Over here is the 99 contour line. So that's that. So from that, I will get the email communication with the DEP to you. But again, that's just, I have worked on this over 30 years of design, probably close to 1,000 stormwater management. And before the stormwater handbook was even published in the school, that's normally people do. It's a little bit different from them. So from my recollection in the school or in the common sense, the setback usually is defined by the 100-year flood elevation inside of the basin, then measure from that 100-year flood elevation O. So that's usually I do. So obviously you can see here our 100-year flood elevation is about 99, is less than 100. So that's why we set that setback line, the 50-foot line over there. But according to the current DEP, which is not going to be only a few feet difference, so it's not going to change in the required setback. So I don't think it's a setback will be an issue anymore. So I will present in that and respond to the peer review, and so he knows where I'm come from. And the fourth, he did comment about this dry well. If you look in the handbook, John, you can correct me. I couldn't find anything for dry well, which is defined by it's kind of infiltration facility for clean water from roof rather than metal. So we are going to be shingle roof, so it's not going to be a metal roof. So that means this, even though it's a trench looking, but from the water quality concern perspective, they can probably, some places roof runoff just shedding on the water to the back and don't go anywhere, can go to wetlands or anywhere right away without going into dry well. So if we need it, we can move in to meet the 50-foot setback, but I really feel there's no reason to do that. So, but rather than for the roof, the ones for the parking, we are observing the 50-foot setback. So, and with the treatment. So, and the second major issue is regarding the infiltration rate. So we use the dynamic. We tested here 6 in situ. The soils are so consistent. It's all coarse medium sand, very clean. It's like a beach sand. There's no doubt. The rate, according to DEP, we tested there, we can use half of the rate, which is conservative. So we did use the half of the rate. And in each area, we used the lower tested number, but they are not really totally that much difference. So, so we use that rate. I think the concern is about the treatment. DEP requires like 80% removal, but if you really go to DEP's current manual, they don't give you really the new stormwater management handbook, and right now in the public comments, I went there, they allow you to really calculate it, including the basins, will prorate it to the volume. So if right now is basically, if you meet the minimum water quality volume, any of the basins, you can claim 80% removal rate. So even you double the size of it compared with the water quality, it's still 80%. But if you really getting in, there's a formula there to calculate. I published actually a journal paper on the TSS removal about almost 20 years ago. It's prorated to the volume and related to how much impervious area going into that basin. So you can calculate it. Right now, I think in the new version, DEP do allow you to calculate it. And there's the same reason also applying to oil grid separator. In the old days, the oil grid separator is setting in line, and actually the Watershed Protection Center Research Center in Washington, D.C. around 1992-93 did a very extensive on-site testing to show that if people started with just like a septic tank, you have the water going to the tank and then going out. They didn't realize that stormwater compared with the septic is so much variance. So you can range from 1 inch rain to 100-year storm, almost close to 8 inch. So if you put in line, it basically the sediment they caught for the first flush, so half an inch to an inch. Then when you have a big storm coming in, they flush it out. So right now, everything should be designed offline and with some bypassing mechanism. That's what we designed. I can show you how we did So if you're looking, any water coming into, there will be a 4-inch orifice, which just handle the first flush, like roughly about 1 inch. They will going into a set assigned oil grid separator. And then after they treat it, they will coming back on the other side of the distribution manhole, we call it. See if I can enlarge a little bit. So any of the water coming in, so they will go over through an orifice going into that. After they treat it, they will go, the first coming in will go into the orifice to that. And after treated, they will go to the other side of the partition in the distribution manhole. And it really, with a very smaller first flush, will be fully treated to the best of water quality. When you have a higher stormwater, because it's a 4-inch orifice, will restrict the flow going into the oil grid separator, and we have overflow wheel. For the clean water, after the first flush, the water, usually if you go to the street, you will probably see that it's become very clean. That clean water will overflow to the other side and join the treated first flush, and then go into the infiltration basin. And if you look in all the proprietary things, this design I have done from the first time, I don't want to say it. I was trying to get a patent, but don't have the money as a big companies. But Voltec systems and the Storm Scepter and the Bay Saver, they all follow similar design mechanism, and they spend the money to study it. But the science and the calculation, we did the exact the same thing and provided the detailed calculation to show this things will work and actually better than the Storm Scepter. Why we say that? Because Storm Scepter put in everything in one manhole, and they have like an insert. You have to pumping the Storm Scepter out through vacuums. You cannot really access it to the down area through a big manhole. So for us, we have a separate tank, and you can access going down with a 24-inch access manhole, just like a regular, if you want to do repair and then clean up. So you don't have to have like a small insert tray in the same manhole to let the water drop into the bottom, and then the larger storm overflow on the top. So that's the beauty why we didn't using the same one. The other Voltec system is a similar idea. So it's just a bypass system, that the clean water bypass. So we have treated that, but again, the DEP only say no matter what, if you say you oil grid separator, they only give you 25%, no matter how you designed it. you can only get 25%. But to get by with that, the idea, we did provide swale, and for this, we are sediment forebay, but I think if the peer review give some good questions, say, oh, you only technically sediment forebay. We planted modification is sediment forebay only require 0.1 inch of runoff over the impervious area, which we calculated is about 2,600 cubic feet to meet the sediment forebay treatment volume requirement. And we have a big the treatment basin in the front. We're going to carve it a sediment forebay in with a deeper and a lined forebay, so they don't we are still above high groundwater, but it's normally require a line like a membrane line the sediment forebay, so they consider it's dirty water. After that treatment, so we have like did a little burn at the end of it, and then we'll force the water travel through a vegetated another good grass land before they overflow to the real infiltration basin area. Again, with the infiltration basin, it's a long, skinny ones. Again, the long, skinny one is a better, one is limited by our landscape, but even without any limitation, elongated infiltration basin always work better, and we'll have a less groundwater mountain because they're distributing the water in a much longer spectrum. So, and then when they travel.
Let me just, so you're justifying your design, but is there any controversy with regard to your peer reviewer? I mean, John, is there any, I mean, we have this design, I'm assuming it's quite acceptable. Is that, or is there a conflict with the peer reviewer about this?
There's some comments that they still need to address. I mean, I sent over the responses from the applicant and Deshang to Pat. I'm sure Pat's probably going to take a run through that with those responses and get back to the commission with what, if he finds certain aspects acceptable or if more information is going to be required. Deshang and I have had a conversation. I mean, obviously, he's very knowledgeable in this field, but at the same point, we still need to make sure that it meets and coincides with the current regulations and rules with the stormwater handbook. But if there's, new material that DEP, or, policies that they want to put in place or instill, that needs to be public. So, for that to be accepted, it can't just be an email correspondence. It needs to be something that's, been approved by all of DEP. So, I mean, that's just kind of the rules and regulations that we need to go by. But obviously, Deshang, very valid in this field. You've been doing this for years. But look forward to kind of seeing kind of what this, how you can make this work for the project.
Thank you. Yeah, Will, I will get that. As I said, it's not DEP there's a court case to settle that. So like in Massachusetts, if this thing is ruled in the court, that's become the golden rule, because if there's any real dispute, people will go to the court, finally the court will rule. And right now the court ruled on the case for how to measure the setback for infiltration basin is from the toe of slope inside of the basin to that. I will get that information out to you, John, and
and I'm sure that would be good for the future, and as you're fully aware, we go by what the current rules and regulations are for all projects. Anything that is made after the fact, there's no retroactive kind of thing that happens here. We kind of go by what the codes and rules are at the time of the filing. So, I would just proceed as kind of going the route in the event that this court case fails or something like that, because, just making sure you meet all the criteria as it currently is through the stormwater handbook and our local guidelines, because, that's probably the easiest way that you're going to be able to get something accepted through the peer review, and also for, just compliance with the Conservation Commission.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
Chairman, should we then continue with if or my engineer still has to confer with the peer review then they can finalize everything for you guys for the next hearing. Would that make sense then?
I can talk to Pat, I guess the question is to,
Yeah,
just to address any.
So for
outstanding-
instance, we're all on an email chain to Shang, you, me, and Pat Brennan. So any
Sure.
sort of lines of communication that gets made, I need to be on there. So just make sure
Sure.
that I'm included in all lines of communication.
Sure, if we do, we set up a Zoom meeting with him, so including you and him, so then we can fully discuss. I was holding on the plan changes because those, especially the setbacks, before I can get another confirmation with the DEP, there's going to be very difficult to argue for it because there's no really DEP written policy. The Pat's comments is also based on DEP's email. There's no written change in the handbook or anywhere. There's no formal policy regarding the setback except the 50 feet. But there's no real detail how to measure it in the handbook, as you know, or in many of the.
Can we do that something with between Pat and John Thomas and yourself then? So
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I think after he see what I get from DEP, I don't think Pat will have any issue. I think most of the engineer was actually surprised and shocked by the DEP's email saying that you have to measure from the outside slope because.
But is that something Pat and John Thomas can confirm? Then we come to the next meeting, then we'll have a resolution for that for the board.
Yeah, and I think, you can't ask the board to resolve this controversy if it is between a peer reviewer, you, and the DEP. I mean, the board doesn't have that kind of analytical and administrative power. So you have to present us with an agreed upon design. And then we would say, okay, there's been a lot of discussion among the knowledgeable parties. And unless something really stands out, I don't think we're going to be the deciders on this.
So
I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
So it makes sense, Chair, then for the continue this hearing today and then have the engineers discuss and then finalize, as you said, just a resolution. So when we come back to the next meeting, we have a resolution or we can have some final determination that the board can make a decision on then.
Yes,
Well, some of us still have questions. Some of us still have questions.
Yeah, we have to go through other parts of the design. So Lisa, you have questions, so why don't you
We
start?
really need to move on from stormwater and let the powers that be take care of that. Let's move on. Can you go back to the site plan, please?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at your first thing you need to change, Deshang, is the first one that showed the snow storage, please. So everything that says erosion control needs to say sediment control. It's not an erosion control line, it's a
Right,
sediment
yeah.
control line. So go
Okay.
back to the first sheet, if you will, that showed the sediment control line and the snow storage, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Yeah, no, this is just a quick markup based on our site visit, so we'll change that.
Okay. Okay, your construction entrance on the west is too long for the area. So your trucks are never going to make the full rotation of the wheels coming in and they'll never be able to make that turn. You're not
Yeah,
giving them.
we can curve it, so okay.
So you're going to have to fix that.
Right, yeah.
The next thing is you really don't have good snow storage locations. So the first one on the far west right there, you never want to put snow next to a building foundation. So that's not going to work. So adjust that one. That one works. The next one looks like it's behind a wall. So how are you going to, you can't plow that behind a wall. So that's not realistic. And then you have to get it off that slope as well. You don't want it on a slope in the infiltration basin. You don't want it clogging that up. So you want to cut it short there.
Yeah, we can cut it there, so it's a
Yeah, I
high
just-
spot.
Don't know how realistic that is. And then, is there a wall around the dumpster to the west?
Yeah, here.
Is that a
There's
wall?
there's a short, it's like a 3-foot wall. So the
Okay.
overall, the wall is very low. It's not high walls. It's like probably maximum 3.5 feet.
Okay, so when we talked in the field, we looked at the walls and you were going to give us
Details.
Not just a limit of the top of the wall, but you were gonna give us a construction envelope to build that wall, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the erosion control is set 2 feet. Those will be a modular walls. So it should be adequate for that. But we will
Right,
give
so I
some
wanna
detailed
see-
cross section.
Okay, so it will fit between there and the sediment control limits then.
Yeah.
And is there did you provide a detail of the wall?
I have not agreed to do, but I haven't worked, so it's only like a weekend, so we haven't really get.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that.
So-
We'll-
If you can adjust the snow storage, make those a little more realistic, you don't want to put snow against the foundation.
Yeah,
Change
we'll try to
erosion-
create
Change,
like
excuse me, change erosion control line to sediment control line, and then give us a detail on those walls, please.
Yeah.
That's all I had,
Will do.
Julian.
Yes, I kept all that notes in my field notes, so that's that's the next the revision after we coordinate with the peer reviewer. We incorporate all your recommendation. That's all very good ones to final version.
All right, Lisa, more questions, or you all say, all set?
All set, thanks.
All right, any other questions among either commission members or members of the audience? So if not, it sounds like we need to have resolution of the stormwater issues to be sure that that's accepted by peer review as well as DEP, and the items that Lisa specified. So our next scheduled meeting is, I believe, the 27th of this month, November 27th. So unless there are further questions or comments, we can consider a motion for continuation of this hearing until November 27th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue file DEP 250-1142 to the November 27th, 2023 meeting of the commission.
Second,
Oh, we have a motion made by Dan, seconded by Lisa. So again, roll call vote, beginning with Paxton and Tama,
Aye.
Aye.
and Dan and Lisa.
Aye.
aye.
And now I need to make note that Ron O'Reilly has been able to join us for this hearing. So Ron, do you want to vote on that continuation? Aye, nay. Sounded like, looked like an aye, but your mic was off. And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries.
Thank you.
So Dan, you got that additional member in the record.
I do indeed. Thank you, Julian.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. So we are now ready to, thank you, Mr. Larkin and Deschamps,
Thank you.
and we will see you then, or maybe next meeting after that if all the items have not been addressed. So we are now ready to move on to file number 250-1141. It's an ANRAD, or abbreviated notice for resource area delineation for a plot on Mansfield Ave. I believe it's adjacent Alberto's restaurant. So do we have a representative for this project?
We do, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering, representing Corvo Properties tonight.
And again, maybe we can have you bring up a plan. I'm sure John has allowed you to share your screen.
Yes. It tells me it's loading, and it should go in just a minute. All right, everybody should be able to see the ANRAD plan now. Is that correct?
Yes, you may need to enlarge it just a little so we can see it, because it's a pretty fine line there.
All right. Let me start there. So this is the property at 0 Mansfield, just adjacent to 241, as we discussed. Obviously, the purpose of the ANRAD is just to identify resource areas on site. So we know what we're working with, so we can move forward with a possible design, whatever that may be. So resource areas that we have determined at this time, I'm going to start on kind of page right and work my way back toward Mansfield Ave, page left. Obviously, just off the property, we have the delineated bank of the Norton Reservoir, and then moving in, we have a BBW that's associated with the bank of the Norton Reservoir. Those are the two primary resource areas that impact this site. We are showing the 25-foot wetland buffer, the local no disturb buffer off of the BBW, and we have indicated the limits of the 100-foot jurisdictional buffer. Moving kind of, I guess this would be well, I believe it is west. We do have two small isolated vegetated wetlands here. They do not qualify as ILSF under the Wetlands Protection Act. They are too small. In fact, DEP had a comment and just asked us to provide a calculation that indicates this. As you are aware, in order for an isolated wetland to qualify as an ILSF, it has to hold at least a 1/4 acre-foot of water. When we do the calculations backwards based on the surface area of these two IVWs, they would have to be approximately 5 feet deep to hold that volume. Obviously, you can tell from the topography that they are not. This one here, what we're calling the B series, is maybe a foot deep, but parabolically. And then the C series here, the topography doesn't really show a defined volume for this one, but it certainly does not get to 5 feet. And I believe that the commission, or at least some members, and certainly the agent, have been on site and likely witnessed that themselves. So the other thing with regard
if I could just interrupt for a second, I can't read the dimension numbers, and maybe if you could just help to call out the width in feet and the length of the lot. I know it's a little bit trapezoidal or not rectangular, so you can just give me those numbers. Oh, okay. So I see.
Itself?
Yeah, as I see a line of 526 feet, and the width is
150.
Is how many?
150. 150 feet of
So,
frontage.
okay, got it.
And then the last thing I'll note as far as resource areas, and actually it was Mr. Thomas who brought this to my attention, as I'm sure you all know, the Norton Reservoir has a locally defined floodplain elevation, and that elevation on the NAVD 88 system is 102.86. If we zoom in here, what you'll find is that the lowest topographic elevation we're showing on this is right at the BBW, and that is elevation 103. So, we didn't go into the BBW to chase that border of the floodplain. We didn't feel it was warranted, since it's clearly going to be located within the BBW and far past the 25-foot no touch anyway. So what we did is we just made a note on the plan down here, note number 10, just to indicate that floodplain does exist. But certainly, no matter what might be proposed here, it won't be impacted. And those are the finer points. I'm glad to answer any questions and certainly turn it over to Mr. Thomas.
All right, so any questions by anyone, members of the commission or members of the audience?
I just think we need a point of clarification with your note. So you're saying that the flood zone, so the ANRAD is us saying, yes, we agree with the delineation and including the flood zone. So you didn't survey the area where the flood zone is, but certainly it's on the property.
Presumably, yes. It would make sense that it is located somewhere between the BBW and the bank of this pond. That is
I think
correct.
we just need to change that note a little bit because it's really irrelevant as to what you surveyed, right? It has to do with the lot in question. You're asking for the lot, not what you surveyed, right?
Sure, we can definitely change the text on that. That's fine.
Okay. So it's going to change the whole, it's obviously somewhere on the site. it's moot what you surveyed though. It's the property itself. So however you want to reword that, because I believe it exists on the property. And that's what we're attesting to.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
not disputing that fact. We can certainly reword that,
Okay.
excuse me.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions among commission members, our director, or anyone else?
I'll just make a note for the record that Paxton Halsall and I were out on site this past Friday to take a look at these resource areas. And I don't know, Paxton, you want to chime in with kind of our investigation?
Yeah, just quickly, we could pretty easily see the flags that were put out there, and they definitely lined up with what we were looking at on just the blueprints that we had, or the overall just map we had looking at everything. So from our perspective, things look good on field.
And just to confirm, we didn't see any 5-foot depressions, as Eric has alluded to, for meeting the LSF calc.
All right, so it sounds like we have adequate information to close this hearing and complete our orders of conditions for our next meeting. Do you agree with that, John?
I mean, I can definitely issue an order of resource area delineation for the next meeting. Eric will send over a revised plan concerning note number 10, and we should be good to go for that matter.
All right, well, unless there are further questions, I think we can consider a motion to close the hearing for file number 250-1141.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Lisa, seconded by Paxton for closing this hearing. Roll call vote, beginning with Dan and Paxton. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Ron and Lisa.
Aye.
And Tama?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So we will be considering an order of conditions next time. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We've completed all the new public hearings for this evening, and now moving on to continued public hearings. We have 3 that we are considering as a single project on Mansfield Avenue that is comprised of 3 separate buildings, file number 250-1129, 1130, and 1131. There were some issues that need continued work, and they are requesting a continuance, or did they want to present some information here tonight? Question for you, John.
I mean, they're on the docket for this evening.
Okay.
As far as I know, I just know that there's, the peer review needs still to be done, and we still need to do the soil testing. So that all needs to get done. So
Okay.
we can definitely present.
And we're fine with presenting each of these 3 as one group discussion.
So lot C and D, correct me, Dan or Jack, as I might be mistaken, but lot C and D are still on the table for being presented, but then you requested lot E to be continued. Is that correct?
Yes, that is Jack Jacoby, 144 Bank Street. I represent the applicant. Dan Campbell is here from Level Design. We'll let Dan take it over, but we're still on the drawing board with E, and lot E may in fact go away.
All right, so we'll open up with C and D, and we can share your screen for the plan.
Good evening, Daniel Campbell, Level Design Group, on behalf of the applicant. As Attorney Jacoby said, essentially what we're doing tonight is we're presenting the two properties that are somewhat together. And Lot E, which is the property closest to the corner of Mansfield and Reservoir, we're asking for a continuance on because it may or may not be withdrawn. So we are working on that this evening. So what we have to answer a few of the questions from last time, we've reoriented two buildings, Lot C on the left, on the north side, Lot D on the south side of the overall site. What we've done is we've put a garage in the middle with a large green space in between the two. We have a underground stormwater basin for the green space, but the green space is exactly that, a recreation area for the complex itself, to give, persons of the complex the ability to go out and have a barbecue, whatever it might be. I know there were some questions about the wall construction. I included wall details and a thickness to the wall at this juncture to make sure that we had the wall that we intended on using and giving a few feet of space between what would be the top of wall and the corners of the building so that persons could get to the rear of the building. But as I said, the entire center of the site is designed as recreation area. We did denote snow storage areas in multiple locations. As we promised last time, we talked to the contractor who does the snow plowing for the applicant. We oriented snow plowing and snow storage locations where they would like them. As we said last time, if it's a fairly large storm, they're going to, like everybody else, pile it where they can on site and then move it later. But these are locations, for the most part, well outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, with the exception of this location here. And we do hit a portion of the 100-foot buffer zone here, but outside for the most part. What we've provided in the redesign plans is we've provided an underground storage area in this location, an above ground basin in this location with appropriate outlets, all that adhere to the 25-foot no build, with not only the structures, but the outlets. John has asked a question having to do with the 50-foot buffer zone, which we will work with the review engineer on that individual item. But we've tried to grade down the walls because I know the walls were a concern in and of themselves. We have high points of the walls at, say, the corner of the building, but we're grading back down so that essentially, like I said, that center portion of the site is recreation area, place for the community of the development as a whole. Parking is in the front, with cleaning structures at both ends of the stormwater system prior to discharge. The stormwater basin to the left-hand side is entirely roof drainage, so it is not cleaned otherwise prior to discharge. We have some minor regrading of Mansfield Ave's green space in between the site and the development, because one of the zoning requirements is attempted pedestrian access along this area, trying to carry people to the center of town. I do know, and as John said, we need to go through the review engineering process. We did just submit the full revised set last week for both these individual sites and applications. We did 2 applications because of how zoning works, having nothing to do with conservation, but it is 2 individual pieces of property, Lot C, Lot D. As you can see, really, they share the amenities, share the drainage, and share the parking. But it is 2 applications for the 2 buildings. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the project as a whole. Lot E, the sewer as it runs to it, things of that nature, if there's any questions.
All right. Questions from members of the commission or John?
Dan, can you zoom in to the back left corner of the building of Lot D, please?
Building of Lot D?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I will go.
With the grading plan, please.
Oh, okay, sure.
So, let's see, what's the distance between the building and I assume there's gonna be a wall there, or is that just a grade?
It is
No.
8.6 feet.
Okay, so did you get feedback from the fire department with full access around that building yet?
We received feedback at the planning stage when the building was much closer to the wall. But this plan as a whole has not been reviewed by the fire department. We moved the buildings like we had talked about last time. We had them at 4 feet to 5 feet, and we increased that amount of space. And it hasn't gone back through the process because these are just being submitted to planning.
Okay, so, I mean, typically the fire department likes a wider lane or full circulation around the building, but that's to be determined. So what is the building foundation elevation right there? And what's the first floor elevation there? I'm just looking at the grading, why you have so much grading back there.
Sure. First floor elevation is 126, and it's mostly governed by the need to move drainage.
So what's the existing grade there?
The existing grade in this location, we're raising the site, I believe it's about 8 feet.
2 feet?
8.
Oh, 8 feet. So
Correct.
you're building up this entire site with fill to meet grading, to meet drainage, all the above?
To meet drainage, as well as to move the water in a somewhat efficient manner in the front of the site.
Okay, that just seems like an awful lot of fill. So you're doing 8 feet of fill across the entire site?
Not across the entire site, at the point in the center of the building. So this is the 118 contour here. So if that's 126, we have, 125, 124 inside of the parking lot. And we've got some elevations, 120, 122 as we're within the parking lot as well. So there's topography across the entire site. Where you would ask specifically, we're about 8 feet on that corner of the building for sure.
Okay, and what about the other building in lot C?
Sure. So the contours are somewhat similar across the property, 120, 19, 18. So if we're at 126 on this building, we're about 6 feet in the center of the building. We're about 5 feet in the front corner of the building, for instance, as we come across the property, mainly to make sure that we are grading appropriately for the drainage systems, to move water and to make sure we capture from Mass Highway.
Okay, so you're gonna have an importation of a lot of fill on this site.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you prepared a SWIP yet that's been peer reviewed?
We haven't prepared the SWIP. Specifically in our stormwater application, we said that it would be a prior to construction once the contractor is chosen. It is most likely to be the same contractor that they've used on other projects who, in a similar fashion, has done this much fill.
Okay, so John Thomas, we should have that SWIP, a condition that SWIP be peer reviewed, submitted for peer review prior to start of construction?
Along with final construction plans?
No, just the SWIP. I mean, it's a requirement, right?
Yeah, we're happy to, and typically I would see 30 days prior to the start of construction so that it gives the peer reviewer enough time. That also gives us the 14-day window for the EPA to, respond with any comments on historic or invasives or anything else.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of earthwork on this, so we really need to see the SWIP and review and approve it. It's gonna be stockpile locations, concrete washouts. We're gonna be looking for all that detail in the SWIP, which I'm sure you'll
Happy
have.
to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the commission have questions, comments, or I don't know if you have anything more you want to say, John?
No, I really can't comment on anything until we do the soil investigation and then the peer reviewer has their first iteration of the review. So I can't comment on anything until then.
If I could raise just one question, we understood very clearly from you at the last hearing that you preferred the parking to be in front and the buildings in between the parking and the wetlands. And we relayed that to the planning board, whose general preference is for the opposite. Can we confirm that the Conservation Commission strongly feels that the parking in the front is the way to go?
Before someone answers that, just out of curiosity, why is it that the planning board does not want the parking the way we do?
That one's an easy answer. The master plan has the planning board shall review comment in the master plan, which ended up in the special permit language. And we said in a case like this, sure, that works great along Main Street, for instance, but in a case like this, we would think that separating the parking, the salts, everything else, and in the front of the site definitely worked better.
I mean, just to even look at the potential impacts for environmental, I mean, that's part of their zoning bylaw. I mean, look at potentially the runoff potential that the parking lots would do to the nearby wetland. I mean, that should be a 101 environmental protection right there for the planning board to take a look at and see kind of, you know, the benefits of actually moving it closer to the street, because there's no wetlands near the street. The wetlands are out back.
We don't disagree, John.
Right.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with you. It's just that their concept of an urban village hides the parking, and you know, we understood, we agree with you, but we also understood that it was this board's preference that we do things this way.
Well, I'd say just for the environmental benefits alone, having the parking out front is what takes precedent over aesthetic. So,
well, I agree.
Dan, let me ask you
If
this.
we really cared about an urban village, we wouldn't allow any construction so close to the center of town. But since we are, which, as John, is good to bring up the zoning bylaw, because who knows how much any of this is in keeping with the zoning bylaw. But as long as this is the case, then I think we should have conservation in mind first. It's you know, it's I don't know. I don't see. All right, I'll just shut up now. I'm going on.
No, Dan, I think
No.
I mean, I know kind of some of that stuff that's in there. Obviously, I don't know it verbatim, but one of the main components of any sort of special permit or project that's going through is the, you know, the benefits to the environment. And that's one
Public
thing.
health and safety.
Yeah, public health and safety and things of that nature. So it's in the applicant's, the onus on the applicant to, you know, ensure that that's all going to be, you know, guaranteed or accustomed to their design. So that's kind of what I think this would be selectively the best alternative for this area.
Let me ask you a question. Can you zoom out a second? So
Yeah.
maybe the argument is to say that, well, not the argument, but the part of what I'm looking at is if we put the parking in the back,
Yeah.
you're going to increase the amount of impervious surface because you need to get to the back.
Correct.
Right? Okay, well, end of story as far as I'm concerned. If the alternate increases the amount of impervious surface, it's pretty obvious what the answer is.
We're around 50 to 75% more to take it to the back of the site.
Yeah.
So would it be appropriate to ask the commission to authorize John to send a note to Brian, just stating the sense of the commission?
Oh, I think we should absolutely make that recommendation, John, if they're pushing the other way.
I mean, I haven't been given any notice of them seeking a recommendation from me, but if it does come down to that, I typically do provide a recommendation as to kind of what the preferred design would be for overall, you know, less impacts to the environment. So if that's something that is being requested of me, I'm more than happy to do so during this process. But we'll get there when we get there.
Well, but then would it be fair for us to represent to them at our next hearing that you, A, strongly feel that this is the correct design for all the reasons you stated? And secondly, that if they want to ask Brian Carmichael to contact John, he would confirm it? Would that be appropriate for us to say?
Yeah.
I think that reflects our discussion, and I don't know what a formal note would do other than, I think it's fair for you to summarize this discussion in your discussions with the planning board.
Right. Obviously, we can't comment on the stormwater for this,
Right.
obviously, but for instance, for overall environmental impacts, then I would say this is probably the preferred alternative for development at this site, based on the layout and design that you've proposed.
Yeah, I think at this point, John, we're only asking about layout. Stormwater, clearly, we still have to be reviewed. We're talking about, the way the site is laid out has been a primary question of the planning board up to date. And I think as Jack will say, that I think a clarification that we in fact are trying to, from an environmental standpoint with the project we have in front of us, this is moving this quantity of pavement outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, for instance, and even though it's disturbed, we're trying to keep, a more landscaped area in between, that kind of thing.
And I will also add that, this current design provides although it's a grass filter strip, but it does provide a vegetated buffer strip between the wetlands and your development rather than a parking lot. So
Correct.
any sort of, surface discharge or any sort of superficial flow would be able to get filtered out by, the lawn and whatnot. So that's one other avenue here. If we had a parking lot, more runoff untreated goes to the wetlands. So, that's kind of my whole entire point here. I think you guys have done a good job with presenting us, a formidable design that meets kind of less environmental impacts.
Okay, well, thank you. We understand your position, and I understand what you've said tonight, and we will summarize this for them at our next hearing.
If I may, I think sending a letter to the planning board is a decent idea, and I will be happy, even at the end of this meeting, to type up my contribution, if we were to send such a letter, what my contribution would be, including quoting the bylaw, John, the one.
I mean, we can just send the planning board a copy of our minutes as well, so they can get.
Yeah, but I don't think
Okay.
we have to do a formal vote. There's been enough discussion that an informational letter would be helpful, and I think the tone of the commission is, sure, send it on.
Thank you.
But John, you think there has to be a formal vote of this?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm all set then.
So hopefully we can proceed with the review process, as John said. We'll take him back out there to dig a couple more holes, with hopefully Janet as well, and we'll be back, as soon as the review's taken place.
All right, and do we have other questions about other conflicts?
You have a hand, Julian. You have a hand.
Oh yeah, I see. So, but as far as the commission goes, we're all set and we can move on to the audience. Looks like we are. So the computer labeled Jane R, you have your hand up. You can take your mic off mute and ask your question.
Hi, Mike, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello?
Why don't you just identify? Yes, we can hear you, but identify your address just to let us know where you are.
17 Reservoir Street and a budding neighbor to this property.
All right, go ahead.
So my concern, even stronger now, having heard the current plan, is if they're going to be changing the grade of the property, across the street from my house. And I had spoken with, I believe, John this past summer. When our home was built over 20 years ago, the property we actually purchased was level with the street because of water issues. Forgive me, after 20 years, I don't know if it was 40 or 80 truckloads full of fill they brought onto our property to try in the attempt to keep our home dry. Most of the 10 homes over here were all sold without none of the homes had sump pumps. We all have water issues now, sump pumps, battery backup, marine quality battery backup, generator, you name it, because we have such a water issue, hence Reservoir Street. So now we're talking about regrading the property across from us, taking away a majority of the trees, which filter out the water and absorb some of it, and put down all this hardscape and roof. Is the commission concerned at all about these houses that are already wet when they were sold to us as dry? What these two buildings are going to do to these properties in the area?
If I may give a rough answer, I am in total agreement with you, Jane, as I think I was at the last meeting. I think you called up when this was last on the board, and just off the cuff, well, I guess I'm not supposed to say anything just off the cuff, but I agree. I would, I have nothing against the developer. It's just there is so much of this development going on, and it is we are a wet a good part of Norton is wetland, and
All right, but
it upsets me
first,
to see
I
this.
think, yeah, I think the question has to be reworded, and that is part of the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act is that a site does not shed excess water, both pre and post development, and certainly the rate. So I think that's part of the peer review process here. Is that?
Yes, it will be. And that's kind
yeah.
of the main component here, is checking to see what the existing soils are, identifying them, classifying them, see what sort of drainage class the soils have currently, and then for the applicant basically to come up with a design that's going to work and meet all the standards within the stormwater handbook, but also our local provisions that we have for regulations. And as they move forward, it's going to get peer reviewed by the peer review engineer that we have contacted. They're going to review it, make sure it meets all the performance standards, and hopefully the applicant can make any sort of adjustments for the project to meet certain things, so that way the occurrence of flooding does not happen off-site. And that's part of the challenge that a lot of proponents and applicants have, is they have to basically ensure for their project to have all the stormwater BMPs, the best management practices, the stormwater devices, components, everything has to make sure that it infiltrates on site. So the challenge is on the applicant to basically prove to us and the peer review consultant that the work that they're doing is going to work in conformance.
Quick question. How could you just tell us again how many people are expected to move into these apartments? Or first, how many apartments are there, and then how many people?
Sure.
I guess.
There are 36 apartments in the building on Lot C and 24 apartments in the building on Lot D.
Okay. So 60. That's 60 more people.
And how many bedrooms are in there?
There's sorry, I don't know who asked the question.
Jane Rotundi, how many bedrooms are in these apartments?
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I can answer.
But I think the underlying point of the question is, are the individual residents going to be adding groundwater? But as I understand it, this project depends on sewer to take residential septage away, and it depends on town water to bring water in. So
correct.
From my perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see that it's so much the residents that are relevant as the amount of impervious surface and the drainage changes because of that. So unless you would want to rephrase that.
No, I would agree with that. And part of the houses directly across Reservoir have the same issue that we do, which is why we have to design for the fill. The groundwater is fairly high. We are not trying to intercept that groundwater. We're trying to make sure we've got the DEP regulated separation to it. To that end, we've made sure of consistent discharge points are control points across the wetlands, and we didn't just use the wetlands proper as a control point. We didn't minimize the wetlands effect on the overall project. We used different sections of the wetland to determine how much flow was going to the section, not just as a whole. Keeping or maintaining that 25-foot no build zone, as well as trying to put grass behind the buildings and things of that nature. But also the closest building to Reservoir itself is 241 feet to the edge of the right of way of Reservoir. So we're going to work with Janet, clearly, the review engineer, to make sure that we are compliant with the Stormwater Management Act, and to make sure that we're discharging, in this case, currently slightly less than is there in a precondition.
And if I can add one thing, originally, and it may have been this way the last time we were before you, the sewer was going to be in Reservoir, but the sewer commissioners asked us to change that. So Dan, do you want to address how the sewer is now configured?
Sure. Right now, as we've submitted it to you, and we're in front of the sewer commission tomorrow evening, the project as a whole will have sewer going down Mansfield Ave. So it leaves the property on the south side, and it traverses almost to the center of town along Mansfield, allowing the additional properties, should anybody's septic system fail, to make a connection as well. Which I think, based upon the sewer master plan, which was recently gone over, this is a high importance area that the sewer department plans to sewer anyway. But we speed that up a little bit with this project.
All right. Any further questions?
John, can I just say thank you for trying to address at least our concerns regarding the water runoff? Thank you.
No worries.
Another quick technical question. Is this going before the planning board? What's the next time it's going before the planning board, or meeting?
Early
I should say.
December.
When is the?
December 19th.
Thank you.
All right. So
Thank you.
it looks like there's a lot of issues to be further explored and addressed with regard to both stormwater and, well, I guess it's primarily stormwater is the issue. And so these two lots, Lot C and Lot D, are currently being discussed as a unit, and that will be continued, I'm assuming, until next meeting, which is, I think it's the 27th of this month. And then we also have a similar continuation for Lot E, which is under still discussion. But there, the proposal is that be continued until December 11th. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm wondering though, if the peer review is going to be completed in 2 weeks, and if we shouldn't just put everything over to December 11th, would that make more sense?
Well, I think we have to, because it's a single file number. So I don't think we can log, isn't
They
it?
have three separate file numbers: Lot C, D, and E.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, but because this is all, I mean, at the beginning of this process, we proposed and continued that these three would be discussed as a unit, and now we're faced with Lot E potentially requiring revision or maybe, not proceeding with that one. So procedurally, I think we can do one continuation motion for these three projects if we go to the same date. And you're suggesting that date would be the 11th of December.
That would be the applicant's request because, in 2 weeks, if we don't have the peer review done, we just have to come in and ask you for another continuance. I think we ought to be practical.
Well,
All right.
sounds like we can
I'll
do
make
that.
a motion to
All right, we have,
continue the public hearing for files numbers 250, 1129, 1130, and 1131 to the December 11th public meeting.
we have a motion made by Lisa and seconded by
Second.
Paxton. So roll call vote, starting with Paxton and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And we have Ron and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
And Dan, and I'll throw in an aye.
Aye.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very
And
much for your time.
Thank you. Good night.
You bet.
Right.
Our next continued public hearing is file number 250-1132, 6 Mary Jo Road, Mark Mariano. And I can't recall if this one,
So we're still waiting on some information from Natural Heritage. I guess they're going back and forth a little bit on what's required for this, kind of for them to complete the review. So Mark has requested a continuance. Did he say what date it was that he was requesting continuance, Megan?
the
next meeting.
The next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
November 27th.
Okay.
Oh, I'll
So-
make a motion.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for file 250-1132 to the November 27th public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Tama. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next up is file number 250-1136, 0 Eddy Street, notice of intent. I believe that also had a request for a continuation until November 27th.
So moved.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded, made by Lisa, seconded by Dan. Again, roll call vote, starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll throw in an aye. And Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. We next have file number 250-1119, a request amended order of conditions for 0 South Washington Street. And I believe there was a request for discussion on that. Do we have a representative?
Yes, Bob Kroll.
Okay. Shoot, maybe we can share the screen of the plan.
Nicole, can you add that, please?
I'll try.
Okay.
So this one's not a continuation.
No, this is well, we were trying to get on before and we had to extend it a few times.
Okay.
We were making changes to the plans on the fly.
Well, the background is, as I understand it, unless I've got the wrong project, is this was going to be a parking.
Correct. Yeah.
And then I guess planning board wasn't comfortable with that, and then you provided a modified plan.
Yes.
That's where we are.
Okay. So we had an approved plan from the commission, and the area previously, the work area that we're going to work within is identical to the area that we have now. The area where the soils
Erosion control.
erosion control area it's in
I'm
the
going to
same
correct you
spot.
right there and say sedimentation control, because I know
Sedimentation control, yes. Okay. So it's in the same spot. It's the same amount of area. What we had before, it was a good chunk of it was all paved. We had retaining walls that came fairly close to some of the 25-foot no touch. Now, since that went away, the owner, he wants to have a laydown yard. He has a property across the street, and what we're proposing to do differently is we're going to put up a building, a 40-foot by 100-foot building, right there. The entrance to the property is the same as what we had proposed previously. It's going to be slightly smaller. Before, because of all the van traffic, we had an island in the middle of it, so it shrunk up a little bit. So it's just a 20-foot apron. So when cars come in there, we're not going to destroy the roadway coming in and out. The proposed building, again, it's a metal building, 40 by 100, and on one front of it, there'll be a 20 by 100-foot paved, either concrete or pavement in the front of it. But that's the only pavement except for a dumpster. Well, everything's going to be gravel. We're going to have a trench. There's a trench going along the side of the we'll call it Florida. On the panhandle side, there's a trench that goes along there. The excuse me, the lot is paved for the water to go into the trench. And
you perhaps mean graded?
Yeah, graded. I'm not sure. And in the bottom, in the bottom part, in the Everglades, there's a stone basin. It's filled up, so everything's stone. It'll be lined with filter fabric. Be 3/4 inch. It'll be larger stone than that. And then on the top, it'll be 1.5 to 2 inch stone on the top, on top of the the filter fabric. So we did this so he can utilize the lot the best he can. If he's going to lay down plates or things like that, he can do so. So that's the big difference. The building isn't going to have it's just going to be a storage area right now. Maybe down the road sometime we'll come back if we have to. If they were to make a part of it an office, and there's no septic system in here either. It's just going to be to put materials down. So that's what we're trying to do. We did get I did get Pat Brennan did review the drainage, and he had a short letter, and I did not. He at 4:28 today, he saw something, I didn't see it, so I texted him what we've addressed everything. There was just a little question about some of the area at the entranceway, and the area of the dumpster that didn't quite line up, so we adjusted that on our calculations. Another thing he would like to see is, which I've added, is on the when they're constructing the trenches and the basins, they want to see sediment traps in front of it, so when they construct it, it doesn't get sediment. The sediment doesn't affect the construction of it. So that was that question, and he had a question about the mounting calculations, and we agreed with what he did, and that's the only thing that we didn't change on the plan. Well, we can get that back to him. And what else?
So Pat had some recommendations for some conditions to be added to the order.
Yeah,
So
and
we'll just add those to the order conditions.
terrific, because we already made the changes in the O&M for question number 5. The O&M, he wanted us to say that the it should be inspected like twice a year, and so we changed that to that. And then, and it's possible that we'd have to change the stone above the two systems, the trench system and then the big basin on the bottom. So we did that, and then I guess, let's see, that was pretty much it. It was just minor things that we've already taken care of, and it's quite a bit different than what we had originally proposed. So there won't be a whole lot of traffic coming in and out of the site. Before, it was going to be 100 vans coming in and out of the site, and now there'll be an occasional truck or a couple pickups coming in from time to time. So it's a very different site.
Could you just expand it so I can see more clearly the area right around the building?
You do that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Can you magnify it so I can see right around the building? Because it's at this level, I just can't make out all the details.
Is that okay? Can you see it?
Yeah, so yeah, it looked confusing before that there might have been a pad behind, but there appears to be no pad behind. It's only in the what I presume is the front, which to me is on the left.
Yes, correct.
And the runoff doesn't go off to the right at all. It gets corralled to go down.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like before, we're not adding anything into the wetlands. We're collecting the runoff on site.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Questions, comments by our director or members of the commission?
I do have a few comments. So you mentioned that the area is going to consist of gravel. So okay, so I don't see a note that tells the contractor what to put down, what the depth is. Is there a note or anything or a detail for that gravel surface?
Let's see. I do have a note on there. I don't know if it can blow up. You'll see it or not. Well, one thing I would like to say is that the slopes will be treated. They'll have ground cover, and they'll have to treat that. Whether they use something to keep that from jute or something like that, and they'll put some ground cover around the edge of it. But the rest of it will be gravel. I have a size of it here somewhere. I apologize. I'm a little out of it. Last week, I didn't realize I was working with COVID. I got figured that out on Friday, so I'm a little bit.
Here's the stone. Is this
Nicole, that's the infiltration trench. What I'm wondering about is the driving surface. So
yeah,
what are they driving on?
Do you know if you have that somewhere?
I'm trying to see. I can't see it. It is on there somewhere. Let's see.
So you have a paving detail. Where's the pavement going?
The pavement is just at the entranceway and in front of the building. There's a 20-foot by 100-foot pad.
Okay. My concern, let me tell you what my concern is long term. So you're going to have potentially construction equipment coming in here or pickup trucks. My concern is going to be tracking. If that gravel is not stable, if the depth isn't thick enough, if you don't have a good sub base, you might have material popping up in between those voids of the gravel.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be if it rains, if it snows, you're gonna be continuously chasing it. So is there a reason you're not paving, other than cost? The entrance, past the entrance, if you could go to the entrance again. So it's good, it could potentially be subject to, continue to erode.
Yeah, we, one of the
I have
things
an
in the
answer for that.
O&M, one of the things that it needs to be inspected at least twice a year, and if after a big storm or something happens, he's gonna have to deal with it. And that can be all put in the order of conditions.
Well, we don't really want to be policing it, so I just want to know if there's going to be a gravel, if you're going to put a detail in there, first of all,
Yeah.
will hopefully prevent tracking, and I would ask that you do a little more than the 20 feet,
Okay.
just to get them off the road there.
Yep.
Yep. And then so you mentioned, is everything going to be stockpiled under cover? So if this is a contractor yard, for instance, is anybody going to bring in excess material for staging or storage?
Well, he has a business across the way there, and he may have some metal plates and things like that he may have lying down, and
but it's not unconsolidated material. This is what I'm going, I mean, we can't just.
I can speak to that.
Excuse me.
Dave Petuix,
Can I
the
talk?
owner is, but let him speak, please.
Can I talk?
ahead.
Can I talk? Okay.
Yeah.
There's one thing to say you're gonna store, hardscape materials and building parts and building products. There's another thing to say, this could be used as a stockyard. We could put, excess fill or whatever on the site. So the only thing I can think of, John Thomas, is if we restrict this, but then again, we have to police it. So, we don't just want material to be stockpiled in this location. We don't know what it's going to be used for. So we have to be thinking about that.
Can I address that? I'd be happy to.
Sure.
Okay, please identify yourself.
This is Dave Patuk. I'm the owner of the project. And mostly what this is going to be used for is my my business, my trench box business grows across the street. I'm not in the business of excavation or dealing with any materials of dirt or any of those, anything like that. I only deal in just plain old equipment, steel plates, steel trench boxes, steel beams, things like that don't have any moving parts, or certainly not going to be piling gravel down there. There's no room for that, and that's not what this is all about. It would to pile anything on there would do the things that you said, cause a mess. And I'm looking to have a nice clean gravel yard there with all the water that rolls off into the right areas. And it's gonna be a nice control, or a nice neat and tidy place of just new and repaired, refurbished equipment that we sell and rent. So there will be it's not going to be a yard for bark mulch or loom or any of that stuff. That's not my business. I leave that to the other guys.
But you will have reasonable sized machines there to move that equipment and load it and unload it, I assume, from transport.
I might have a small forklift over there. That would be it.
So that would be suitable for the size of equipment that you're saying you're storing there.
Absolutely, yeah. Only up to a 12,000-pound forklift is really probably the most I would need.
So John Thomas, I would just ask that we add a condition that says there's just no material stockpiling. So that's all. I know you don't intend to, sir, but who knows?
Well, I don't intend to, but I don't want to go down the road of just putting all kinds of arbitrary restrictions on there. You just don't know what's going to happen down the future either.
So
this isn't arbitrary, sir.
I mean, I will
Not
say,
arbitrary.
I will say is that what we could do is basically state a condition, obviously outside our jurisdiction. You can basically stockpile whatever you need to, but it needs to be in compliance with the stormwater.
Yeah.
Is that, within the parameters of the 100-foot buffer zone, there's going to be no storage of material and things of that nature. So you're basically going to have to figure out what you're going to do on site, have it contained, and make sure it complies with all the rules.
Absolutely. And then the only thing I ever have any intention of doing is anything that is within the existing bylaws, basically all lawful purposes and nothing else. And if there's not outside of the what's allowed within the town zoning bylaws, which I've read many times, but it's pretty complicated. I keep referring back to that. I have no intention on even going anywhere near 90% of what's allowed in there.
All right, but I think, from a practical everyday issue, a gravel surface doesn't last forever, particularly if you're driving over it. And we just want to be sure that things get maintained and it doesn't become just a muddy mess. But then
I agree.
in a rainstorm goes into the wetland.
I absolutely agree. And that's not what I would want. I agree 1,000% with that. I intend on having a nice, neat, tidy yard over there, and that's it. No, very, very similar to what Riberio has over there on next to the lake. He's got everything nice and graveled and pitched, I should say, and it's beautiful over there. Now he's grandfathered on all the things that I'm doing here with the drainage and everything, but it's still a good looking system over there where it's not mud. He did a beautiful job grading it. It's got the right stone that's large enough. And
right,
we'll be stripping out any organic material before we put any gravel down.
Right, but by the same token, regardless of how long that facility has been there, if it became degraded to the point where mud and other materials were washing into the reservoir, that would spark immediate action on the part of the director and the Conservation Commission. So that's our concern. It has to be maintained. All right. So a question as to what we do. I'm assuming this modification of the plan, we have suitable information in order to act on an amended order. Is that correct, John?
I mean, unless there's some other sort of outstanding items that people want put on the plan for clarification, I mean, we can just, pending receipt of that final plan, we can, make this happen as well. I think there were some questions and concerns that were raised by a couple of members this evening.
I think the most important one is to make sure the detail for the gravel is there, make sure it's sufficient, and make sure it's noted where the contractor has to put the gravel.
We'll do.
And I would also show the areas that you're going to stabilize with grass. That way, when you come back for an as-built, it's clear.
Okay.
All right, so that sounds like we can consider a motion to close. I don't hear any objection to that. So it looks like there is a hand up in the audience. So perhaps we can go ahead with that. Sam, computer name Sam. You have to take your mic off mute though before you can ask, but is that a real? You know what? That's my cursor in the wrong spot. All right, I take it back. No questions. So we can consider a motion to close.
So moved.
Sorry, I'll make that motion to close the public hearing for file 250-1119.
Yeah, I think Ron got it as the motion. You got it as the second. So we can go ahead and vote on the motion to close. So starting with Lisa and Ron.
Aye.
Aye.
And Paxton and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
and Dan, and I'll throw in an aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. That's file number 250-1119 is closed. Our next item is notice of intent, file number 250-1138, I guess. 14 Guy Street. And that's what was the recommendation on that? Do we have a representative, or is this a request for continuation?
No, because of the time framing of the last meeting, we weren't able to close an issue. So we told them.
Ah, yes, that's right.
But based on the design and everything, I think, some of my comments were to kind of review the house location, but based on the the driveway and the grades and everything, it would be kind of problematic and public safety hazard. So they left it as is, but I guess the commission was comfortable with potentially closing and issuing a order conditions this evening for that project.
Sorry, is that 1139?
So the only
14 Guy Street.
Oh, is this number G?
1138, I think.
Okay, I'm on the wrong thing.
Oh, I might have got screwed up here. It is listed as item G.
I'm looking at John's
250-1138.
report.
Did I have it the wrong one?
No, I don't know. I'm looking at G of your report.
Which one did I have? I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's not the same as the agenda. I'll go back to the agenda.
On the
Okay,
agenda, it's G.
Oh,
okay. I'm looking at the
1138.
commission report. I think it's different.
yeah.
Okay,
I messed up. I apologize.
okay. No worries. I just have to have it open, but. Okay, I got it.
All right,
I didn't have it on there because in my report because you guys were all comfortable with it.
so it sounds like the only item is to close the hearing and then consider the order of conditions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my recommendation to the board.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to close the hearing for file number 250-1138, 14 Guy Street.
So moved.
Second.
Well, so we have a motion made by Tama and seconded by Paxton to close the hearing. Again, roll call vote, starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Ron? Not Ron, Dan.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And we still have one more hearing. File number, excuse me, file number 250-1139, notice of intent on Dean Street. I don't recall where we were with this one, so maybe someone can refresh my memory.
I'd be glad to, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair. My name is Eric Dias. I am representative of the applicant, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering.
And do we have a plan? Because that will, I think.
Yes, I do. Let me share my screen. And it's coming up. And everybody should be able to see that plan.
Yes.
Okay, so just to recap, when we last left off at the last meeting, I certainly don't want to put words in the commission's mouth, but I believe the commission was relatively comfortable with what we're proposing. We had a pretty clean letter from Pat Brennan with just a couple of things to address. And the commission asked us to continue to give them time to prepare an order of conditions inside of the I think it's 30-day or 21-day window, whatever it is. To the extent that the commission appeared satisfied, I certainly did not want to rock the boat. However, we went to the planning board the next night and they asked us to make a few changes to the plan. So we did. Nothing that I think the commission will have an issue with. A few things that I've actually spoken with John Thomas about, but I'd like to just walk you through those real quick so you know exactly where we are at this point. If I can go to the plan set here. Now, I've only reissued the sections of the plan that warranted revision at this point, based on some of the comments that the planning board made. So the first thing the planning board asked about, we talked about the idea of clearing and how to help ensure that these lots don't end up cleared at some point in the future. And, we noted that obviously there's a large BVW on the site and the commission has a 25-foot no-touch buffer. And it appeared that, everybody might be a little bit more comfortable with a bit of a belt and suspenders type of approach. So after consultation with Mr. Thomas, what we actually are proposing is, you see the red line that we've put across the back of these lots, and I can go to the next sheet in the set as well, and you'll see the same or a similar red line against the back of these lots. Along the back of these lots, excuse me, and they approximate the 25-foot buffer zone. What we're calling them is an open space preservation boundary. It's a reasonably significant portion of the overall property, and the idea is that there will be a condition of approval, either written into the deeds as a deed restriction, and certainly part of any HOA documents, that basically identifies that in perpetuity, there will be no clearing of trees beyond these red lines that you see here on any of these lots. We propose to mark them with some wooden posts with appropriate vinyl medallions on top every 75 feet or so, just to make sure that there is some demarcation of that in the field. So hopefully that helps give people a little bit more of a comfort level with a bit of a belt and suspenders approach to, limiting further clearing even beyond what the commission might one day allow. The other thing that we've written in, and this is probably less of a condition issue, but just some guidelines for vegetative screening between the lots and the existing abutters, basically to maintain a vegetative screen, and anywhere that we can't, we will install either a fence or an evergreen screen of some sort, just to help limit visual impact. Again, more of a planning board thing. But the last thing that we did provide on these plans, and this was in response to one of the comments that Pat Brennan had, if you go to the erosion control page, you'll see down here we have a whole plethora of notes that we added. And these are construction phase inspection and monitoring requirements, just a guideline, basic minimum requirements for what we're going to do to maintain the erosion controls and protect the stormwater system during construction. We do note in here that this project will be subject to a NIPD's construction general permit, and there is a SWIP that goes with that, so certainly that will govern. But we wanted something, just at least absolute minimums on the plan, and then refer back to the SWIP for additional controls, things like that. So those are the only changes to the plans from what you last saw. I think they are improvements. I think conservation areas are always a good thing, and more controls for keeping the site clean during construction can never hurt.
And from your plan, you don't even get into the buffer. And currently it is not cleared into that area. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Currently, the site is largely vegetated. The only place that we're getting into the buffer zone is in this location here. You see this hatch striped area. This is going to be a discharge from a stormwater outlet. It discharges right here outside of the 25-foot buffer. We made sure to keep it more than 100 feet away from what is technically a potential vernal pool, but is very likely certifiable. So in the event that it ever is certified, we've already accounted for it. We're 100 feet away from it, and we're good to go. So This area is the only disturbance proposed within the buffer zone.
Okay, I'm really confused by this open space. You're not giving us anything. We already own the first 25 feet that you can't touch. So what? It's between there and the 100 that somebody could clear right up to that property line is what you're saying.
Somebody could clear up to that between there and the 100, and obviously that's.
So this open space designation is nothing. It means nothing because we already restrict the first 25 feet. So why isn't that open space 50, 75, or why doesn't it go to the edge of the buffer? We should be drawing a line in the sand at the buffer zone, because right now, these people can take this and clear all the way back to that open space. All the way through
With a permit, yes, they can.
Yeah, that's
right.
And that has to come in front of us. I think, part of the condition that goes along with these subdivision roadway projects is that the planning board has some stipulations that sometimes they need to have open space preservation. Isn't that right, Eric?
Yes, it is.
Right, so that's the planning board.
So that's what I'm saying. The planning board. I mean, I think this was just showing us that, for instance, they're having open space preservation areas for these properties. It has no bearing on the approval for conservation. It's more so just putting it on the same plan. So that way, for instance, when someone comes in front of us and, pulls a file for this and says, oh, can we please see the conservation plan for, this development, because we want to see, what's going on, and whether we can, potentially put a patio out there or something like that, that may be infringing upon the 100-foot buffer. And they notice, hey, there's an open space, boundary out there, or they're within the 100-foot buffer. So I think it's just just showing all the cards on the table for anyone that potentially pulls this file in the future.
So what does the commission want to do in terms of a visual barrier or in, trying to block further tree removal in that 100-foot buffer with consideration to a potential vernal pool back there? Because that's the most critical part, is that vegetation.
Well, I mean, we don't have a local bylaw. And as the state requires for protection for vernal pool habitat, it only goes up to the resource area that it's within.
Right,
So,
but John, we put visual barriers everywhere. So
so I'd say that, our typical stance on that is putting it at the 25-foot buffer. But if the commission feels it necessary, I mean, they're not doing that much work on this project. So, I mean,
Right, but that's not the homeowner, John. The homeowner moves in, the tree lines at the 100-foot buffer, the homeowner has no idea, and they start clearing all the way up to that. That's what I'm concerned about.
But isn't that every project that comes in front of us? Any new buyer?
Aren't we tired of it? Are we tired of it? Are we gonna actually do something about it? Are we gonna put up the stop sign somewhere at some point?
But why pick a project like this that has like the least amount of impacts for this to start this on? I mean, there's plenty of other projects that have come in front of us that, are well more obtrusive than this one. I guess that's my question. Why is now the kind of the turning point?
Okay, one, we have to start somewhere. Two, I'm seeing that there's an obvious disconnect between what the developer tells us they're going to do, and then the first person in the door into these houses might elect to, clear more to put a swimming pool or whatever else in, right? So wouldn't we want to put something in here that would prohibit maybe work closer than the 25? I don't know.
I mean, but I think in this case, the only thing we could really request is at those spots where the wooded, the border with the woods meets the 100-foot, that we could just have an informative sign that's saying, please note, clearing beyond this area requires obtaining a permit. And, we can specify it as from Conservation Commission or not, because there are a couple of spots, at least on the plan that's up, where it's right at the 100-foot.
Right.
And people may not be aware that they're entering a regulated area.
Yeah, it just needs to be clear so that it's passed along to the homeowner. I get that they've, looks like they've done minimizing impacts here, which is great, but doesn't always translate to the person moving in, so.
So just so the commission's aware, we just purchased some new placards, the ones that we typically use for the 25-foot buffer, the visual buffer.
Mhm.
I think 250 of those cost me $750. So just to kind of give you a sense as to kind of how much they cost. And those are 4-inch placards. So if we're going to start doing that for every project, we're going to have to, have some sort of, visual barrier fee, because I can't, we don't have enough funds to pay for that. So that's another thing
Are
to
you using
think
the
about.
Wetland Protection Act fund?
I mean, it's a local requirement. It's not wetland protection.
Mm,
So that's the issue.
mm. Okay, well, something to consider.
All right, but we are set to close this hearing for this, correct?
Yes, we are.
Yep.
And are we ready for that step?
Yes.
Well, we need agreement with the commission members, and if we have that agreement, let's hear a motion. And the file number is yeah, 250-1139.
I'll make a motion to close that file number.
Motion made by Tama, seconded by
And second it.
seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton. Ron,
Aye.
that looked like an aye. And Paxton, I got your eye. So Tama and Lisa,
Aye.
Fine.
I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
All right, very
Yes.
good. So we now are, I guess, according to the agenda, our next item is the request for a COC for file number 250-1023, which related to one of the retail projects abutting Route 123 and Leonard Street. The other one is our next one, also requesting certificate of compliance for 250-1024. No work was done on either of these projects, and as I understand it from John, they can be closed out in favor of the hearing that we had tonight.
Yeah, they should be closed out before the commission would ever make a decision to clean the slate.
So moved.
I think we have to do them one at a time. So motion to close to issue certificate of compliance for file number 250-1023. And Tama, I'm assuming you made that motion.
Yes.
And we have a second.
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 I think Paxton won that for the second. So a roll call vote starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
So Ron, your mic continues to be off, but I think I saw lip reading an aye. Okay. And now Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, and I'm assuming, Lisa, you have to be recorded. Abstention. Okay. And now a similar motion for file number 250-1024.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Ron, seconded by Tama. Again, roll call vote, starting with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
and Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw an aye, the motion to,
Abstain.
where the certificate of compliance passed, and we have an abstention from Lisa. Next item is certificate of compliance for file number 250-1120. Okay, that's on 257 Main Street. Do we have, well, maybe you can describe what that project is, because that's a fairly recent one, I guess.
Sorry, I just closed my screen by accident. Give me 1 second to get it back up.
Okay.
So 257 Plain Street, it was a project that was in front of us. They were proposing a garage. They've completed the construction of that garage that was in riverfront area. And I inspected it with the landowner yesterday last week. And everything seems to be good based on my visual observations. The visual barriers in, I gave him the placards. He was adhering them as we were talking about vacationing in Aruba. So it was a good chat, and everything seems to be working out for that project.
So I'll make a motion to issue a full certificate of compliance for 250-1120.
Second.
So we have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Next item is 14 Guy Street, order of conditions. And I am going to confess I was unable to review that order. So I don't know if that's going to be controversial or not. Anything complicated there?
It was pretty straightforward, tailored order of conditions for the raising of a residential building and then the reconstruction of a building within the buffer zone. I didn't have anything of crazy substance to it. I don't know if any of the members had any comments on it.
No, it was pretty straightforward. I will make a motion to issue the order conditions for file 250-1138.
Second.
We have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Dan, to issue the order of conditions for file number 250-1138. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And how do you vote, Dan?
Aye.
So the motion carries. Now we had one more item, the modification of the orders for the Goose Brook Garage. We did not vote on that. The movement of the work pad. And I'm assuming we all have no problem with that, and it was recommended. It's actually an improvement. So our file number on that
Was
1128. So
Yep.
John, it looks like you just took out the alteration, the quantification of the alteration in the resource area, and just said that it's outside of the buffer zone and riverfront area, right?
that's mainly what I thought was the easiest thing to do for this
Okay.
whole entire project.
Yep. Okay. I will make a motion to issue the amended order of conditions for file 250-1128.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Lisa to issue the amended order, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. How do you vote, Dan? And that
Aye.
looks like an aye. So the motion carries. We now have minutes.
Yeah, I just want to
Uh,
apologize to Eric. Eric, I wasn't able to get to your order of conditions for 0 Dean Street, so I apologize for that. I had quite a bit of happening. We have open space stuff, and I had a lot of stuff on my plate, so I apologize for that.
No, no problem, understood. If I may, just to clarify though, that means we won't, or the commission won't be formalizing a vote on that tonight. It will be at the next meeting, is that right?
It's going to be at the next meeting, yes.
Okay, great.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. We
Yep, you're
appreciate
welcome.
your time.
Any comment on the comments on the submitted draft of the minutes of October 16th?
I did have a question. I myself, there was a gentleman who sounded as if his name was Clinner on one of the files, and
Dan,
I
he
could
was
not.
he was on the call tonight for Collins Engineering.
Oh, Clenner. I see. Or Clenner. Okay.
Clenner, yes.
Okay.
All right. So you can just
So
add his
anyway,
name.
yeah, I have to find out where it was. It was the one.
I think it was
where
the
there was-
first one.
It was for Guy Street.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, that was the. Yep. Okay, so.
KLE. I can't even remember. Clenert.
Yeah, so I'll put that in. Yeah, that was the one where. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Brooke Monroe.
Yeah, I thought there was. I spoke to Megan about this. I thought there was somebody named, or some company named Brookman Rowe, and so I was feverishly looking over the internet for some engineering company called Brookman Rowe, and it was
Brooke Monroe is a wetland scientist.
Monroe, who's a wetland scientist.
All right. Well, so it looks like Lisa, you were absent from that meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was absent, so I don't know how I could have abstained.
Oh, yeah, I sorry about that. Yeah, that's I didn't realize. I thought I had taken all those out, but I guess
Well, they're in this copy, but that can be corrected.
That can be corrected.
Well,
John, do you want me to send you a
I can fix it,
updated?
Dan.
I'm sorry?
I said I can fix it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Megan. Yeah,
Is there any reason why Ron abstained?
Because he was with you.
Well, was he in a butter or something? I don't know.
No. I just
right.
somehow I had it in my brain that absence was abstention, which of course is a different thing. So I apologize for that. Wherever it was that.
Yeah, but it's all over the place. It's all the way down to meeting minutes.
Yeah, and Paxton may have had to abstain because he was not involved at all with any of the hearings.
Right. Okay.
At that point.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Okay,
right. Well,
so
it just has to
You know,
That
so-
just says, I mean, it looks like that column has to disappear because other than for Paxton's abstention.
So Megan, you're good with that and putting Clennert in?
Yes, I can do that.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so we can, unless there's further corrections, we can consider a vote on the draft as amended.
I have to abstain, so someone has to make the motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected by Megan.
And this is for October 16th, so we need a second.
Second.
Motion made by Thomas, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Ron and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. And we have an abstention registered for Lisa. Report from staff.
So during our site walk, it was great of everybody to show up. Next time for everybody else, it's fine. But we had a lot of fun, I think, even though we all had the day off, but it was good to get everybody out there and see kind of the site. So that's good. Lisa came out with a very good suggestion. She was talking about how the 25-foot no disturb buffer is no longer applicable, and we should expand it to a larger distance from as a setback. So I wanted to throw that out to everybody. She has proposed 50 feet. So for a policy, obviously, you know, we do not have a local bylaw. So the way around that is to, you know, have a policy. So I basically would be looking to draft up a potential policy for the next meeting, hopefully to have that potentially in for discussions, and then to get approved, because I think all policies have to get approved through town meeting. So that's one thing that we'd have to do. So I can definitely draft up a potential policy in the interim for the next meeting to basically have the members kind of look at it, because as we know, 25 just isn't cutting it anymore. A lot of local towns and municipalities have bylaws, and they also have this 50-foot no disturb buffer policy within them for the same kind of level of, you know, needs and protection, because as we've noticed, people like to push the envelope and go right up to the 25-foot buffer. So with that said, I leave it up to the members to discuss this and whether they think it's a good idea. But I'll just leave it up to you guys to discuss.
John, what would happen if we pointed out, if we asked for 100 feet?
Yeah,
I think you already know the answer to that, Dan.
Yeah, I mean,
Lisa is laughing.
Well, you're in effect creating new legislation. Although if town meeting approves it, I guess it would become new legislation, basically a bylaw. But do you think you could get
Well,
it?
my
town meeting?
No, but my instincts would be to make it, to ask for 125, and then we can have people feel good about going back and only doing 100.
So I can tell you, Dan, there's a handful of towns that have but what they do is they consider the buffer zone a resource area. And there's a handful of them, but you're still allowed to do things in them. But then they have, within that 100 feet, they'll say, okay, you can't put a building up within 50. And then the last 25, you have to, you know, leave undisturbed. So there's all kinds of things you can do. But I really think that when we looked at the 25, it's been 20 plus years. It was baby steps in this town, right? It was, okay, we need to stop people from going up right to the very edge. And we've been living with that for 20 plus years. And now people are pushing the envelope right on the 25.
Well,
but I think it's fair to say there's science to back up
Yeah.
that the at least 25 feet is needed for proper functioning of the wetland. And so, I mean, if we can come up with some additional bolstering of that 25 feet is not enough, and, you know, no buildings within 50 feet, that's reasonable.
Well, I guess my question is, in the last 5 years, why did DEP redo their policy for groundwater infiltration? That's groundwater infiltration, mind you, right? It's not superficial, you know, disturbance or anything, or a building going up. That's just groundwater going back into the ground, being 50 feet away from a wetland. You know, there's some sort of study or something that was done, you know, to really promulgate the need for having that, you know, 50-foot buffer off a lot of these infiltration best management systems. So I guess my question is, you know, how do we justify this 50-foot addendum to the 25? I think if we can just try to come off of what DEP has, you know, kind of instilled with that policy, we can say, hey, look, times are changing, things are happening, you know, we need to, you know, get with the program. And I hope that a lot of people would on board with this and not think that we're just trying to take away available uplands that they can just basically, you know, infringe upon the wetlands with.
The only, I mean, I definitely believe it's warranted. You know, people have been adhering to the 25, you know, in good faith, but it's a policy. It hasn't been tested yet, right? Because we can't deny something. If somebody came into the 25, we still can't deny it because they could just appeal it to DEP. So,
well, if that's,
I mean, the other option is we just do a very simple bylaw and put forward a very simple bylaw and say that regulations will be drafted up in a year, and we can basically put whatever regulations we want in effect and not have to go to town meeting for that. The only thing that we need to do is just put a very simple bylaw in front of the town, you know, make it as boilerplate as possible. And then, you know,
thought we had to get town meeting approval for bylaw.
For bylaw, yes. For bylaw, we do. For regulations, you do not.
I don't think you can have regulations without a bylaw.
No, but for instance, you don't need to get regulations. You can have the bylaw, but then, for instance, the regulations refer to the bylaw. So the regulations should be, for instance, the commission should be able to vote on the regulations. That's how that's how I did it in Sharon. So that's how I would envision it happening here.
Okay, so you're saying if the bylaw is going to be very general and it's just going to give us the authority to promulgate regulations.
Correct.
I gotcha. So is that something we want to consider, or
I think you have a better shot doing that. I think you have a better shot doing that.
Yeah, but this would primarily apply to new construction, not modifications of old.
So that's when, for instance, we would have, because this is what I dealt with when I was revising all the regulations and things in Sharon too, was, you know, how this is applicable to new development versus pre-existing development. And I clearly stated what constitutes pre-existing development versus what is new development. And, you know, it's a fine line, but for instance, you just got to make sure that you identify it in a manner that kind of works. So when someone's coming in for a redevelopment project or an area that was previously permitted, that's where I would say that, you know, that's the importance, is it was previously permitted, had all the necessary permits, and, you know, went through the whole entire process. They would be basically not have to worry about the project as much conforming to that, you know, setback. But for instance, it's brand new development where they're going to be cutting trees down and, you know, bringing in eight feet of fill, you know, similar to other projects that we've seen in front of us, that would constitute the need for enforcing those sort of, you know, regulatory features.
John, do you or Lisa, do you have an idea in your head of a list of the towns that have passed the more conservative, by which I mean more liberal, environmental restrictions?
There's hundreds of, Dan.
Yeah,
I
there's
couldn't
plenty of
tell
them.
you.
I would, if you're looking for a very conservative bylaw, look at Easton's. I remember when I was on the commission over there, they had a very conservative bylaw. Mansfield's kind of, on the fence between being for and against. So it's kind of in the middle. But generally, I mean, there's other towns too that are kind of in the same boat that we are in. They have a bylaw, but still they don't have kind of the needed protections that other towns do have.
So, but John, do you think, what's the easier road to go in terms of town meeting? Is it just the 50-foot policy, or is it enacting bylaws? So, I mean, the last time we tried a bylaw, it was shot down.
I know, and here's kind of the challenge that we have in front of us is that if we want to infringe upon more protection for, preserving the resource areas and the like, my suggestion would be, if you're going to do 50 feet, you're probably going to want a bylaw for enforceability.
Yep.
Because otherwise, basically, someone can just do whatever they want. They still need to file a permit, but they can just basically tell the commission that, hey, it's a policy, I don't really need to, there's no enforcement to it.
Right.
So that's where we're basically, we're giving everybody and applicants, the good faith kind of Boy Scout, Girl Scout kind of motto, to basically, be good stewards with the land, but not everybody sees it that way. And,
So can we go down the path in two-pronged approach, right? Can we put two things on the whatever the hell it is, the ballot for the spring? Can we go enact a 50-foot policy and at the same time enact a bylaw?
Yeah, I mean,
why can't we do that?
I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. I mean, the question though becomes that, would you rather want the bylaw or the policy?
Well, no, because then what happens is if they approve the bylaw and we get to promulgate regs, then we take that 50-foot policy and we wrap it up into a reg.
Yeah,
We still need reg, that's all.
I get it. So like, for instance, you're basically, playing the slots, hopefully, and you're hoping that you're gonna, hit the lucky sevens on one of them.
Right. So we put both before them. And if one's shot down, then we have a shot at the other.
Right. I would hopefully, try to curtail some language and basically make it sound and try to sell it as much as I can. Especially in areas where, it's just unfortunate to see some sort of development going in these areas, but it's just how it's presented to us. But at the same point, I think there's certain areas in town that would definitely, welcome this kind of, setback and potential protection in the future.
Well, let's think about going down both roads if it's possible.
So I would say that if we actually want to, have a discussion about this, I mean, I think the next town meeting is in May. So I'd probably want to get going on potentially getting something together. I'd ask one of the members here, I don't know who it wants to be, to help me spearhead this cause and basically, formulate a strategy and game plan for approaching this. I was going to nominate Dan Pearson if you're available, because I know you've
why
been.
not? I know. I feel you're hitting me at just the right time because I feel guilty about not going to the site visit. So yes.
Well, I just know how much of an I know how much of an advocate you have been, and I was actually going to see if Paxton wants to, just kind of shadow kind of a lot of this and kind of just see what potentially we could do for this, moving forward. Meeting of the minds to basically kind of just get this going. And then once we meet and discuss kind of what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a bunch of bylaws together from adjacent towns. So that way we can kind of go through it and just kind of see what other towns are basically having.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of just, either culminate a kind of a consensus or basically get something together to really, formulate a strategy. And then, hopefully then we can meet with the commission during an executive session or something to kind of try to hash this all out. So, but
yeah, I just want to put out there, happy to help Dan, help you put together something. So
that is if we're all in agreement that it needs to be revisited to begin with.
Okay, so I guess the question is, does everyone want to revisit this?
This being specifically a bylaw that will allow us to stipulate primarily the 50-foot be left untouched, or did I get that wrong?
Well, it's gonna be either a bylaw and or the 50-foot no disturb policy. So we put them both before town meeting to see which one
Okay.
flies.
Do they both have to be voted on? Both the bylaw and a policy have to be voted on?
They would
No, but
both.
what I'm afraid is if we nominate just one thing, if we say, okay, we're gonna go for a bylaw and that's shot down again.
I'm just that, yeah, I'm
So-
afraid that if one gets shot down, they both get shot down. That's what I'm.
And then that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that, you know, the problem that we run into here in town is that, you know, just making sure that everybody that is pro environment or, you know, not pro development, but also wants to have an even balance, show up to the meeting and kind of try to basically promote what we're trying to do here is basically have some form of, you know, official enforcement, but also, you know, trying to protect the environment at the same point.
I mean, I'm definitely in favor of continuing the discussion and making sure that we get the right options to the table, to ensure as best success as we can. I don't know that we're going to solve it tonight. I'm getting a little sleepy myself.
Definitely not. I just wanted to bring it up because Lisa
not
brought it
tonight.
up at the meeting. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
And I'll give a note of encouragement to Paxton. No, this is not our common meeting length. Usually don't push 3 hours.
No.
I don't mind. I don't mind it.
Well, I'm getting worn out myself. So
Yeah, okay. John, I would just say not before Monday of next week, because we're going to run into some good weather, which could be good for doing some stuff. So
Yeah, Dan,
maybe,
I'm in no rush. I've got a lot on my plate. So, I mean, whatever
Okay,
works, we
all
can
right.
talk about it. I mean, obviously I need to pull
Okay.
together a bunch of stuff, but yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. How's
All
that?
right. Thank you. I'll agree with that. Good night till next time.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everybody.